Well, welcome to the Raymore City Council regular meeting for Monday, October the 24th, 2022. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call, please.
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Forster.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Councilmember Wills.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
I'm here, and so we have a quorum tonight. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have no presentations and awards this evening or personal appearances on our agenda, so I'll go right to the staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Kras to make a staff report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I've submitted a written report. Also wanted to highlight a couple of items. We had several members of the Public Works operations staff attending the latest session of the Public Works Leadership Academy. So that is an 18-month program that, so they have several more cycles to go through. We also had our first snow crew meeting last Friday, kind of kicked off with the crew going over equipment and some other safety items, getting ready for the upcoming snow season. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Kras? All right, Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Kras. I would ask Mr. Musteen to make a report for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of council, I've submitted a written report, just a couple highlights. We got a lot of staff doing some extracurricular activities, education, training stuff. Todd Brennan will be attending the executive forum for Missouri and Kansas Parks and Recreation administrative staff, working on retention, recruitment of staff, and those types of things. Mr. Gibbs will be traveling to the NPR conference this week with some other staff members, some here in this room. And Jacob, one of our maintenance guys, he is attending the class and to be certified as a certified playground safety inspector, so he can go in and make those determinations on what is safe and what is not. And then next week, we're pretty excited. We get Corinne back from maternity leave, so it'd be nice to have that gap filled and have some help there. But so a lot of stuff going on with our staff members. And this weekend we have our end of season tournament for our soccer. So this will be the last big weekend of outdoor sports, some baseball stuff going on. A lot of projects going on, and I got to visit with Raymore Elementary last week, the second grade, and got drilled with questions on what I like about Parks and Recreation and the city of Raymore. So that was a wonderful 45 minutes. Had a good time there. And that concludes my staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Musteen? I got a chicken sandwich from Culver's today and went down to Hawk Ridge to eat it and noticed all the equipment that's staged there and the work that's been done. Of course, they couldn't work today because of the rain, but a lot going on there at Hawk Ridge Park. It's yes. Have we got all of our equipment delivered, and it's just a matter of assembly at this point?
Most of the equipment is delivered outside of what they'll bring when they come back next week. They were working on the walls and the forms, and we had to wait on some forms to get done. That's finished, so they should remobilize next week, and once they get here, they're here until it's finished. Great. So they'll bring the rest of the equipment.
Excellent. Well, thank you. It's looking good. A lot going on down there. Thank you, sir. Mr. Anyone else have a question? Okay, Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Musteen. I would ask Ms. Harmer to make a report for Communications.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Since Mr. Kras didn't mention it, first I want to remind everybody that the Hallow Clean stream cleanup is Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Burke, for officially signing up. Haven't seen anybody else's names on there, just saying. But we'll have coffee, donuts, hot chocolate. It is kid-friendly as long as your child can pick up litter, but there will be prizes and should be a good time, as fun as picking up litter can be. Last week, I attended the IPWA one-day conference. It's Inspiring Women in Public Administration. It was hosted by the KU Public Management Center and Kansas Women Leading Government. It was in Overland Park. The theme of the conference was teammates, and the keynote speaker was Danny Welniak, the communications director for the Kansas City Current, who are heading to the National Women's Soccer League Championship next weekend, so that was really exciting. It was definitely there were other things we did, but that was the highlight of my day. But it was really a really interesting talk by Danny Welniak. And then coming from that Raymore is excited to host a networking breakfast next week for the Missouri chapter of Women Leading Government, which is an affiliate of ICMA and MCMA, Missouri City County Management Association. And I'll also be taking headshots of any of the ladies that attend that want a new headshot out of the goodness of my heart. So we're just excited to showcase Raymore. It'll be at Centerview. And the Kansas City side of the Missouri Women Leading Government has been just recently gotten kind of active this year. So really excited to have that going on. And that's about all I have for you tonight.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Abdelwad.
Just a quick question. If people want to still sign up for the stream cleanup, how would they find that info?
Raymore.com/stormwater. It's also the first thing that comes up on our calendar, on our website, and on Facebook. We have the event too as an event through our city and Parks and Recreation page.
Yes, Ms. Forster.
Thank you. The Raymore Coffee, is that something we can come to, or is that invite only?
If you would like to check it out, you can. The members do chart, we pay $30 a year. Erica and Lisa are also members, and so is Sean in HR. You're welcome to come and check it out, and maybe you'll want to join. But just let me know if you want to be there so I know to have food for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Melissa. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Ms. Harmer. Just a reminder to the council, next Monday is a fifth Monday and it is Halloween. So unless something comes up in the interim, there will be no council meeting scheduled for that particular evening.
Okay.
That concludes staff reports. All right, sir.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Fearborn? Thank you. We'll move on then. In our agenda tonight, we have no committee reports. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We just have the one item, which is city council meeting minutes for October the 10th. So I would entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve consent agenda item A, city council minutes for October the 10th, 2022.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Mr. Townsend.
Mr. Mayor, even though I was absent for that particular meeting, I have reviewed the minutes and I feel I can vote on the matter.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3750 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3750 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the fiscal year 2023 budget.
Thank you, ma'am. And since this is our probably most important piece of legislation we do on an annual basis, does anybody have any further discussion before I entertain a motion?
Your Honor, staff would request that the motion also reflect the amendment that was made to the proposed budget, so that the motion tonight would be passage of the city manager's proposed budget as amended by the council at your last regular meeting.
Okay. Then I would entertain that motion at this time. Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move at this time that we adopt the fiscal year 2023 city budget as amended at our previous meeting.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I second.
You second it? Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Motion been made and seconded to approve Bill number 3750, second reading, the FY 2023 city budget as read and amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3749 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3749 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the Unified Development Code.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion or questions of staff, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3749, 35th Amendment to the Unified Development Code.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3749. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3752 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3752 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2022 operating budget.
Thank you. I know that there was some information that was sent out by request to the group. Are there any questions on any of that information? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3752, budget amendment for the FY22 operating adjustments.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3752. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3751 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3751 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with T.C. Fuller Construction, LLC, for the Country Lane Storm Inlet Rehabilitation Project, City Project Number 22-410-201, in the amount of $35,000, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This project involves rehabilitating a number of stormwater inlet structures on Country Lane between Coventry Lane and Westminster Court. Various type of repairs, maybe regrouting some pipe, filling some sinkholes around the inlets that have resulted from some erosion. So we do recommend award of the contract to T.C. Fuller.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Krass? Yes, Ms. Worcester.
Do we have anything, I know on this, it said that we'd be putting it out around October. Are we going to start as soon as, if this goes through? Or is this a next year project? Just to know if there was a time frame kind of already.
We do anticipate work starting this fall as long as weather permits.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3751, award of contract Country Lane Storm Inlet Rehab.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3751. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3754 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3754 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Terry Snelling Construction for the 2022 Sidewalk Gap Project, City Project Number 22-412-201, in the amount of $92,742.50, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Outlined within the agenda and also on the maps shows the locations of the work where we're going to be installing sidewalk. Probably one of the biggest areas is along Fox Ridge Drive from the lofts to Johnson Drive along the elementary school there. We do recommend award of the contract to Terry Snelling.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3754, award of contract for the 2022 Sidewalk Gap.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3754. Any further discussion? Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a comment. I've had several conversations with respect to the Fox Ridge portion of this particular sidewalk expansion. And appreciate staff getting this on the schedule. May have been on there for a while, but in part of the discussion, but understanding that development was necessary to extend it from the current Eagle Glen up to the Lofts Apartments and continuing on up north to Fox Ridge, 58 will follow once development on that particular portion of the community is built out. So again, thank you to staff getting this on the schedule.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? There's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3755 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3755 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with T.C. Fuller Construction, LLC, for the bridge and culvert cleaning and repairs project, city project number 22-411-201, in the amount of $75,589, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Every 2 years, the Missouri Department of Transportation inspects our bridges and large culverts and prepares a report. This project, in this last inspection go-around, they identified some culverts that were in need of some sediment removal, some trees and other debris that had built up, as well as some installation of riprap around some of the foundations. We do recommend award of the contract to T.C. Fuller.
Thank you, sir. So was the other bidder infusing diamond chips into it or something? It's kind of a big difference there.
I anticipated that question. I really could not come up with an answer. We open bids, and in transparency, have to report them. So I'm flabbergasted. So.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you. I was just curious. Anyone else have any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3755, award of contract bridge culvert cleaning and repairs.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3755. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3756 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3756 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Terry Snelling Construction for the curb ramp repair project, city project number 22-413-201, in the amount of $50,000, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Let me guess, Mr. Krass.
It's kind of like Mahomes going to Kelsey, sir.
All right. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. If council will recall, last summer we had a couple of engineering interns that evaluated curb ramps throughout the city and kind of prioritized them and by defect ranging anywhere from total tear out and repair and replacement to some minor repairs to what we have in front of you today is ramps that meet requirements but for having truncated domes installed. And so this is the first project of probably a multi-year project to install the truncated warning devices on the ramps and then do some minor repairs such as caulking the gap between the curb and the ramp, but it's at locations where the ramp is sound, doesn't need any other repairs. We do recommend award of the contract to Terry Snelling. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Krass. And again, the obvious question is the differences there. I mean, there's a huge cost difference there, again, between the other bidders. I was just kind of curious as to what we might be missing here.
Our engineer's estimate for the work was 50. It's in line with our engineers. The low bid is in line with our estimate for the work.
Okay.
So.
All right. Good enough.
You will also note that this was a negotiated amount, sir.
Okay.
So my assumption is that whatever was bid by unit price, we got them within our budgeted amount.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir. Any other questions of staff? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3756, award of contract curb ramp repair.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3756. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3757 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3757 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2022 operating budget, approving and authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase property located at 216 South Adams in the amount of $85,000.
Thank you. Any questions, or staff report, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Zer to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mayor, members of the council. What you have before you this evening with Bill 3757 is a proposed contract as well as the necessary budget amendment that would allow for the purchase of the property at 216 South Adams Street from John Patrick Horan and Mary Elaine Horan. This will provide the ability for the city to potentially, and in the future, expand the TB Hanna Station Park. If purchased, the property will be held until a final determination is made with regard to park plans and updated plans for the area. It'll be maintained according to park maintenance standards during the time frame that they have for planning of the parks. Purchase price is going to be $85,000. The funds from it will come out of the Fund 45 for fiscal year 2022, which currently has a fund balance of $1.4 million. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding that. Otherwise, city staff would request approval of the real estate sale contract and the necessary budget amendment required for that.
And just as a reminder, I had asked Community Development to provide us with a map, so just kind of refresh your memory on what piece of property we're talking about. That was on the dais tonight for you. Are there any questions of staff? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve Bill 3757, budget amendment and purchase of 216 South Adams Street.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I will second the
Thank you,
motion.
Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3757. Any further discussion? Yes, Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick note for people in the area who might be wondering, as Mr. Zer said, we aren't planning to do anything with this property right away. And one of my questions when we were talking about it initially was the trees. A lot of people in the area might be concerned about the trees. And so we do not plan to touch any trees, at least not immediately. And even in the long term, we aren't planning to clear all the trees off the property.
I've actually walked this property myself a couple of different times. I'm sure some of the council has too. It steeps you in the historical significance that this piece of property is to Raymore. I was kind of looking out across Adams Street at all the beautiful stuff we've done with the park. Trees are part of that history. And so we want to do everything we can within the existing, and of course, in a park-like setting, the trees serve you. Some of the items we've discussed as possible uses, one of many. The trees would serve this particular piece of property. I actually made a personal promise to Mrs. Horan that at the very least, that magnolia tree stays that's sitting on this property. So I kind of feel like I have a personally vested interest in making sure everything's protected here, because they had intended to be here tonight.
Right.
Such a nice couple, great couple. They're invested in Raymore. They own a home in Original Town, so we get where they're coming from and certainly want to save every tree possible.
Thank you. Any other bits of discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. And our last item under new business this evening, could I please have the first reading of Bill 3758 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3758 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, directing the city manager to initiate the procedures required pursuant to Chapter 523 of the Revised Statutes of Missouri for the acquisition of all necessary rights-of-way, temporary easements, and permanent easements to complete the extension of Sunset Lane.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Zer to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mayor, members of the council, what you have before you this evening with regard to this particular item is the authorization that will be required for staff to proceed forward with acquisition of the necessary right-of-way and easements for Sunset Lane's expansion. Sunset Lane expansion was originally contemplated as part of the August 4th, 2020 GO bond approval from the citizens of the city of Raymore. The Sunset expansion will run from its current terminus to 163rd Street. Right now, the city has, through negotiation as well as the development process, been able to acquire all of the necessary right-of-way and easements for the completion of Sunset Lane, with the exception of one parcel that will remain. We have attempted to negotiate with that parcel owner and are reaching a point where, based upon the development of Madison Valley, are needing to push further with regard to the acquisition of the property through potential condemnation proceedings. Madison Valley, as you may recall, has development options available for it, but the city's memorandum of understanding with the developer has limited construction traffic to Sunset Lane. We need to be able to make sure and provide that access. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that would conclude staff report.
Thank you, sir. And as you know, there was a small Scribner's report, and the updated version is on our desk tonight for our perusal. Any questions of staff at this time? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3758, Sunset Lane eminent domain property acquisition.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3758. Any further discussion? Yeah. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously 8-0. That concludes new business. Will bring us to public comments. If anyone from the public would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one come forward, we'll move to mayor-council communication. And Mr. Holman, I'll start with you tonight, sir.
I don't have anything this evening, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Burke? Anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I smiled when he said that because that's exactly what I have, is nothing to add either. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Abdelwad?
I do have a little tidbit. So, interesting story. I was at the Belton Hall of Fame and all-class reunion event and was approached by Pat Gore, who, if you don't know, does a lot of work with actually the historical societies in Raymore and Belton, and actually Lee Summit as well. And we were talking about how it was the 50th anniversary of our Belton all-class reunion, which would have meant it was the 100th anniversary of the class who started that event in Belton. And so talking to Pat about that, she said, but did you know that it was at the beginning of October? This is actually also the anniversary of the 150th anniversary of the Raymore Post Office. And so that was just a little interesting tidbit. And then she emailed me a little bit more information about it. And just in case anyone else is interested, the post office in Raymore was originally established as Hazen, but changed to the Raymore Post Office on October 7th, 1872, 150 years ago. And that T.B. Hanna, who our park is named after, was the first merchant in town and also the first postmaster of the Raymore Post Office. So just a little
Interesting, yeah.
tidbit I learned that I thought I might share. Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing. Ms. Wills?
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to say that it is that time of year where deer are out and about, or it's getting to be that time of year. So I just want to remind everyone to make sure that you are being very cautious and careful, especially when you're driving at night and down 58 and all of that, to watch out for the deer. Additionally, Halloween is coming up, and there are going to be a ton of children out on the streets. So just make sure everyone is super careful about that. That is it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Berenson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank John and Mary Horan for selling us that property on 216th South Adams Street. I know it may seem like a small thing to purchase that lot next to the park, but that park is such an overutilized facility that I'm sure we're going to find a very good use for that property in the future. And anytime we get a chance to expand a park that's used that well or that often, it's a wonderful opportunity. So I've heard from discussions from Mr. Fearborn, they've been wonderful to work with, and just want to extend my thank you again to them for everything. And
Thank you,
for
sir.
letting us purchase that. Thank you.
Mr. Barber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to add a little bit to that, too. If you remember TB Hanna, that's how we acquired it, was bit by bit. And so my vision is that we probably will keep us expanding it bit by bit. So, yeah, pretty excited about that. I just want to also commend Mr. Fairborn and his staff. The budget's approved. You can relax, and tomorrow you can start on 2024, so, which I know you will. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have nothing this week, other than to echo Ms. Will's comments. I believe it was this time last year, I had literally, for those who know where I live and how our property's oriented, I literally had a deer in my backyard for about 5 hours one day, just milling about, just enjoying my grass. But he meandered on, so he survived the day, but thank you.
Hopefully. Hopefully he didn't meander toward the highway. Ms. Forster?
Thank you, sir. I would also like to kind of stick with the Halloween coming up and just ask everyone to be careful and have patience for the kids and let them just enjoy this time, and also have grace for our police officers during Halloween. I think they probably get a few more phone calls, and we got a good group of police to take care of us, though, so I feel like they have grace for teenagers, but also kind of keep them in line. So, thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Great comments all. I don't have anything to add to that, so I would entertain a motion to move into executive session.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend?
a motion that we move into executive session pursuant to litigation as authorized by revised Missouri Statute 610, subparagraph 021, subparagraph 1.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded for the group to move into executive session. Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes?
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Forster?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Wills?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a quorum to move into executive session. When we're done with the executive session, we'll come back out for adjournment from regular.